Howdy, folks. Welcome to episode 18 of Great Ideas of Great Minds. Today, we'll be talking about how to find your universal song. So, to find your universal song, I propose this. We take our current streaming services and we adapt them to be able to take snippets of these songs and make your universal song. So, just as today, one would be able to use all of the songs on Spotify, for example, and all the albums to make a playlist, it'd just be taking it one step further and taking snippets out of songs to save them and make, I guess, what you'd call a playlist, but a mashup of your snippets of songs that move you. And so the point of this is to create your personal universal song. So right now, it's kind of like what I look like I do as excess on a song. So the artist who makes a song that moves them and hopes to move others. And so when an artist makes a song, I assume that most of the time they do not add stuff that they think is excess because they think every part is important. And yet when I listen to many songs, there's parts that I just ignore because I'm like, I don't honestly care about this part of the song. I only like this 10-second segment. And so often I find myself listening to, for example, a 5-minute song. I really do not want to listen to 4 minutes and 50 seconds of it, but because I love 10 seconds of that song so much, I buy or listen to the song, and occasionally even pay for premium streaming so that I can go back again for that 10-second segment. And so, to beat this process, what I'm proposing is that you be able to take that 10-second segment and do that for all the songs that you like, and take those good segments that you like and make your song. And so the cool thing about your song is that just like any remix or mix, it's going to be a really ugly process at first. Because just as when someone makes a mixtape, it's very hard to have songs transition if they're not made by the same artist. Because, of course, if you make an album, you try to have some amount of flow. And it's easier because if you're the artist, you're controlling what is your flow. And so hopefully, when you make the album, things transition well because you've intended it that way. And yet, when someone else takes your album and they take one of your songs and they try to mash it together with someone else's song from an album, well, those songs were never intended to be put in an album together. So they're going to probably contrast a bit, and they might even clash. And yet, I don't think that's totally true. So the beauty of your song is that it only makes sense to you. And so while one artist can try to have flow within their song that they have sent out, they've already actually achieved their universal song, and they're just putting it out there. That's their flow. And they probably only achieved that flow by listening to other music around them, and then by making the thing that made sense to them. And yet, that's kind of a privilege to be able to do, because it's a privilege to have the ability to write music, to be able to sing, to be able to play, and to be heard, and even to have the ability to be produced and recorded. And yet, what I'm offering is some way for everyone to have agency, for everyone in the world to have their own song. And the important thing is that, well, almost none of us are going to be making money off of our song. Because just as it takes privilege to be able to make song and have it, it also takes a lot of effort and sacrifice to try to put your music out. And so, if you've done all that sacrifice and that effort, someone else should not be able to take your song and your effort and make money off of it. Because frankly, that's a stealing. But someone should be able to take your song and not get money off of it and combine it with someone else's song and make their song and still not make money off of it, but listen to that song and not have repercussions because that person has now found what they like in your song and someone else's song, and they've actually made their song now. And so in that way, we show how we're connected. So for example, I look at musicians as the agents of our spiritual expression because somehow they manage to pull things out of the universal fold and find things that resonate with us so that we listen to them. But then, of course, as soon as the musician or the composer makes these things, really, in the whole dialogue of things, it's no longer their possession on the spiritual plane. Because since they pulled them out of the air and out of the human experience, they don't own the human experience and they don't own all of music. So they just happen to find something and someone else happens to like them. And so just as they only become famous by people listening to them, part of that is because that song resonates with people. And so if your critique of the music industry, you'll be like, only trashy pop songs seem to get produced. Okay, take that as you will. But what I'm offering right now goes beyond any of these hang-ups in the music industry because it's not focused on making money off your song. It's focused on being able to use an unprecedented access to music to make your song. So for example, right now I can take songs from every continent and almost every country of the world in different languages and make a song that is just spectacular for me. And if I was able to use a streaming service to take the seconds and the segments out of those songs that I actually liked, I'd have what is called a diverse amalgamation. And so in the modern time that we're in, we're always talking about diversity and inclusion and interconnectedness. What is more diverse and interconnected than taking the actual song of people who've never met one another and making a song that unites people, that recognizes the value of people by saying, you actually reached into the human experience and made something that resonates with me. And so by taking your song and putting it into my experience, I'm showing that we're actually connected and that we're equals as people. And that I'm willing to pay for a streaming service that makes that possible, because that's honestly why I like Spotify or streaming services like that. To me, there's nothing better than Spotify and other streaming services because I'd never want to buy an album again, to be honest. I hate buying albums. I don't ever want to have to like pay for a concert or other things. I don't see the point of them. And again, this is my opinion. I love streaming services because they do the hard work to bring all artists together and to give a simpleton like me, who never has enough money to see all the concerts, who cannot afford to go to rural parts of the world and hear these small bands, and they bring them to me so that I can hear their music and hear their genius and connect with them and find my universal song. And that's incredible. I mean, what is more beautiful than being able to hear someone for, let's say, very, very isolated parts of China, and that song to come to rural Kansas, and all of a sudden, you have a farmer hearing the song of another farmer, and not even knowing the language of the other farmer, and yet you hear something. Because that's actually something really cool about music, if you ever thought about it, is that you can sing in a whole different language and actually understand nothing about how music is composed or how it goes together or about scales, and still love it and still feel moved. Versus how often can you hear someone blandly speak another language and actually feel something from it? But if you took that same supposed bland passage and you put it together to music, you're rocking the soul. And somehow that person is communicating with you and you have no clue why. And you put your two of you in a room, you probably would not understand one another, and yet you found a universal connection. And this is what the universal song is. Your universal song is the acknowledgement that you are part of something. You are part of all. And yet, as part of all, you are actually the individual. And so no one else can have your universal song because it's your ability to find connections to other people that keeps you connected to other people, and other people cannot say what you are connected to. And that's why your song is unique, and that's why it has to be unique. And that's why you have to have the ability to look at everyone else's songs and to be able to pick and choose what you want, because you should not be forced to listen to albums. Because I'll be honest, I've never listened to an album that every song I liked. Most of the time I listen to an album and I want to cut out 2 or 3 songs because I'm like, this is a great album, but honestly, I only listen to it for one song. And I know this sounds ignorant, and I'll listen to you if you say, if you're a big pro album fan and you just hate things that are happening. But again, let's turn these on their head. Wasn't the point of an album to take a lot of effort to make something that really flowed? And isn't what I am proposing? Aren't I doing the same thing? Aren't we doing the same thing? But we're just taking it beyond something. Because if we think that only artists have the ability to express us, then we rely on artists to dictate what our lives are, to dictate what we can sing and what we can be moved by. But if we see artists only as the means to the collective end of becoming connected, then all of a sudden I think they actually become more important, but so do we, the ignorant individuals who can't pick up a guitar and rock out a riff, or the person who doesn't know how to put notes to music. And yet, that person can paste, copy, click, and make their song, listen to it, and feel just as connected, like they just did something. And so, let's see where this goes. Let's see a world where everyone's universal song is heard, and maybe such a world is a little less ignorant. Such a world is a little less full of hate. Such a world is less full of fear. Because if you can hear someone's song, you can hear discomfort, joy, and even be surprised when somehow, with access to all the music in the world and all the possibilities, even your next door neighbor takes that same 10-second chunk out of your favorite song and puts in their song. And then, all of a sudden, despite all the odds, you two are sharing for a brief 10 seconds your souls vibrating together and realizing, holy shoot, this person is with me and I'm with them. And yet, we're but we're just one. And if that's not love, if that's not connection, then I don't know what is. So maybe I'm a dreamer, but I think it's a dream worth having. So here's to you, finding your universal soul.